Today's episode is the first of the Fresh CrEd special Washington, D.C. series. Ed and I were thrilled for the opportunity to sit down with Cathy Burns, CEO of the International Fresh Produce Association, to discuss IFPA's efforts here in D.C. to increase access to fresh produce and drive consumption. Cathy has over 25 years' experience in the grocery industry, serving as Food Line's Chief Operating Officer, Senior VP of Retail Ops North, along with several other senior positions in the industry. Cathy has a BS in Management and Marketing from the University of Maine. So sit back and enjoy this open and frank conversation with Cathy about the IFPA and their leadership here in D.C. Hey there, CrEd heads. I am excited today to tell you our title sponsor is Equifruit. At Equifruit, they are committed to changing the banana industry. With Equifruit, say goodbye to hazardous working conditions, unfair pay, and gender discrimination at the banana farm. They deliver everyday high-quality bananas with farmers and farm workers as a first priority. Equifruit has 100% fair trade, women-owned, and a B Corp. Follow Equifruit on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Equifruit. It's the most badass banana brand on the planet. Hey, CrEd heads, welcome back to the Fresh CrEd. We are joined this afternoon by Cathy, the CEO of Cathy Burns, the CEO of IFPA. Welcome, Cathy.
Thank you so much.
And of course, my good friend Ed Bertodd is here to my right.
So still here.
Yeah.
It's been a great couple of days for us.
Awesome.
So, and trying to make some things happen here in beautiful D.C. It's always a little bit of a struggle to get the train moving, but how's it been going so far, Cathy?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you both for being here and supportive and lifting up the industry in the way that you do, telling the stories to a broader audience of certainly people that can't be here. So really appreciate the partnership with both of you and what you're doing, and all the CrEd heads
The CrEd heads
that are out there listening in the world.
That's going to be a clip right there. We're going to just play it on a loop.
Exactly. It's going great. You know, we've had a busy couple days, and we still have another day in front of us. It's been great to have advocates here that care a lot about the industry, have stories to tell in their own voices, in their own words, to be able to influence members of Congress. You know, we moved this, it used to be in September, and we moved it to June. And quite frankly, in an election year, and probably any year, it's the absolute perfect time because a lot is happening in Congress. They need to make decisions. And for us to march on the Hill with, you know, up to 400 people out there telling our stories, and telling our stories for impact on the things that we care most about and the industry needs.
Yeah.
Basically, Congress needs to do their job, and we're arming them with data and positions in order for them to do just that. So great day and a half so far.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, and for sure, it's obvious. I mean, no matter, politics sometimes is not that much fun, but it is a way of life, right? You've got to be part of this conversation up here if you really want to change and make things happen out there, because, you know, they're ultimately making the decisions. And you know, I know consumption is really at the core. I think for all of us in the business, consumption is a key calling mantra, if you will, for us to go after. Just curious on some of the things that are taking place. You know, I'm looking at the notes here. You know, the Farm Bill has been one of those places where, you know, I learned earlier today that fresh fruits and vegetables weren't even part of the Farm Bill up until like 2003. Was that what? Is that
2000,
what?
yeah, 2000.
And so, but tell me a little bit about what's going on and what actually. So the Farm Bill, has it been completed? Let me ask question one: did they get it signed?
Absolutely not. I wish they did. And my call to action this morning actually is that we need a bipartisan Farm Bill done this year. The reality, they're running out of days. In order to do that. It's an election year. So as you know, they're off for a couple weeks around the 4th. They leave for August to go back to their districts. They're going to be campaigning. Then, you know, you get into the campaign cycle. And then all of a sudden you wake up and it's November. And so then they come back for to the end of the year. So it's going to be really challenging for us to get a Farm Bill signed, certainly pre-election. We're hoping still that it'll get signed by the end of the year. Regardless of that, though, the frameworks and policies and positions that we've seen so far from Senator Stabenow, we've seen G.T. Thompson's markup bill that was passed in the House, and Senator Bozeman is dropping today, actually. I'm going up at 5 o'clock to meet with him to see his it's not even really a framework, it's just kind of his guiding principles on what's going to be included in the Farm Bill. So there's at least, of all three of those, specialty crops is getting a significant investment. And that's great because, as you said, 25 years ago, we weren't even at the table.
Weren't even at the table, yeah.
Now we're at the table, and people are funding us, or at least it's in their frameworks and positions. Now we need to get that over the finish line at the end of the day. But it's a great position for specialty crops to be at. And from IFPA's perspective, we're going to be at every table where food is being discussed. And we're doing that in this city, we're doing it globally, so that we make sure that our industry gets our fair share of investment. A little known fact, actually, that the Farm Bill is the single largest investment from the government in specialty crops. That's why we care so much about it.
Wow.
And that's why, these individuals that are representing our industry are going up and making sure that to protect the investment in research, in nutrition, the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, which is oversubscribed, quite frankly, as part of the Farm Bill. We need to be able to protect these programs, mechanization, investment in mechanization and innovation, crop insurance. We are part of the Specialty Crop Farm Bill Alliance, and that's about 200 organizations in the U.S. that represent specialty crops. And we come together and we put together 109 recommendations that we took to Congress, and they basically, with context and the need that this is what the specialty crop industry needs in order to be successful moving forward. And so many of those recommendations have made it in the preliminary either bill or frameworks, and now they need to get together, the four corners and the teams up there, and figure out what gets over the finish line and how it gets funded.
So what happens? Okay, so
Yep.
the Farm Bill, I feel like, is always in flux every time I'm here, and so let's say it doesn't happen. What happens January 1st?
Well, I mean, they'd have to extend what's currently
So they
in
just
place.
basically
We're already
just
late.
keep pushing
We're
it
already
down.
9
Is
months
that,
late.
Yeah, that's
right?
what they keep extending and
Exactly.
That's what they keep.
Exactly, because it expired last September,
Right.
September 30th. So now they've extended it. We're 9 months into the extension, which is not good for the American farmers and the American supply chain, quite frankly. It impacts the consumers all the way back up to the people that grow our product, our farmers. And you never want something like that in flux. So the game is not to extend it and to get it passed.
Right.
They need to do their job.
Cathy, in a nutshell, why did it take so long for specialty crops to be added to the Farm Bill? I think we learned today that dairy had been 100 years or more included in the Farm Bill. Not probably being involved at the time, myself at least.
Yeah.
I don't know why it took so long.
Yeah, and it predates me too. I think we didn't have enough champions in
Just organization,
on Congress.
basically.
Yeah, I mean, Senator Stabenow, quite frankly, was one of the reasons, a huge champion for our industry, was one of the reasons that specialty crops even got a seat at the table as it relates to the Farm Bill. And now, I mean, we grow in all, we have a representative in all 50 states, whether it's a grower, a shipper, a distributor, a retailer. I mean, we represent the full supply chain. So every district in this country has an IFPA member living in it and advocating for it. So I think as we continued to get organized, quite honestly, and you had members of Congress being more aggressive in making sure that we're at the table, but even still, and I'm grateful that we're at the table, and I'm grateful that for what I've seen so far on what's being included in this upcoming Farm Bill, but we are almost 40% of the farm gate value, and we're less than 10% of the investment out of the Farm Bill.
Say that again.
We're about 40%, over 40% of the farm gate value,
Okay.
and we're less than 10% of the investment out of the Farm Bill. So we have a long ways to go, and we've got to get that more balanced in the long term. Yeah. So not complaining about where we are, but we've got some real opportunity to get more investment for specialty crops.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating. The fact that something like this, it feels like should be one of those things that on the Hill, everybody ought to be aligned, and this is a no-brainer, and check the box. But nothing's ever, I guess, black and white, and there's always some gray area or some reason somebody else has a different philosophy on it or whatever.
It's interesting. If you talk to most people on the Hill or the community, or at least the districts they represent, people will say this country was built on agriculture.
Yeah.
I mean,
Boy, it absolutely was.
And if you look at what's happening to rural America right now, it's struggling. We had Secretary Vilsack speak this morning, and over 500,000 farms have gone out of business, and there's a lot of headwinds coming at our farmers, and
there's a lot of barriers to entry as far as farming is concerned. It's kind of like I was talking about the steel industry the other day. It's not something somebody just wakes up one day and decides to do. Like there's a certain process that has to happen in order to get into farming.
Exactly. And it's the bedrock of rural America. So if you think about, that continuing to erode, if we don't continue to provide the support in order to shore them up or to inspire new farmers to come in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's most concerning, is that you want young people to be able to start in the farming community and be incredibly successful, but we're not giving them the resources at the rate they need in order to be successful.
So that's a perfect segue,
Sure.
right? So we got farms going out. Mm-hmm. We're trying to encourage people to come in and start new ones, mm-hmm. but they don't have workers to work in the fields, and they don't have water to put on the crops.
Yeah.
So we've got the conflicting forces. Talk a little bit about the H2A and kind of what we're doing here, and how that's progressing along and where you see that going.
Yeah, so for your listeners, especially those that are in the farming sector, they know these statistics all too well. And we just released Monday, actually, a labor report that finally quantifies what the impact is of these labor headwinds. And so again, as people go up to the Hill, they have this data that they're armed with. Data is king, or data is queen, as I like to say, to be able to go up and have these conversations about what's happening in the labor sector. On average, a farm needs 22% more labor than they currently have. Said another way, they only have 80% of the labor they need in order to harvest their farms. That's huge. Yeah. Our industry supports over 2.2 million workers. That's bigger than dairy, that's bigger than cattle and farming, that's bigger than the egg production industry. Wow. I mean, we are not a rounding error. We're worth to the economy $340 billion. So what we needed to do was say, okay, this is not, I think we've been talking about immigration far before any of us were talking about it.
Oh, for sure.
Immigration reform. So it's up to 40 years now that we've been having this conversation that we need comprehensive farm workforce, really we just need a plan, and it needs to be modernized. H2A needs to be modernized. Certainly we need a comprehensive workforce reform, but we need to start now. And what's happening is the Department of Labor just came out with more regulations that are more onerous on farmers. You've got the average effect wage rate that is another headwind for us. Again, your audience is well aware of this. And so what we did was we said we need data to be able to support our position. So now what's happening today that I'm very, very excited about is last year, you may remember we were fighting a WIC battle. Mm-hmm. And so they were going to cut WIC by $1.2 billion across our industry. That's sales, that's produce sales. And obviously that impacts across the supply chain. So we went to the Hill with baskets, and what it showed a basket full of produce, what the current investment was, and what the basket would look like with the cut. And it was shocking.
Yeah, it was like 7 pounds or something for the whole month.
Exactly. Good memory. So it was the talk of DC. Like the baskets were everywhere. We did a social media campaign and an ad campaign. We had a jingle. We were like irritating in a good way from my perspective. Long and short of it is we won. And they didn't cut the $1.2 billion. So we started in the run-up to this conference, we said we need something for labor. We need that same visualization, exactly, and shock and awe as it relates to labor. So we've constructed a box, and typically when new members of Congress come in, we deliver a full box of fruit and vegetables to them to welcome to the industry and say, we're here. Make sure as you're making your decisions, you remember us. Well, you take these boxes that they're actually delivering on the Hill right now, you open them up, and it fits 16 pieces of fruit, and there's 4 pieces of fruit in it.
I opened one of those boxes. I was wondering what was up with it. I thought maybe they had to consolidate or something.
No.
That was on purpose.
Exactly. So they open this box thinking they're going to see a full box, and there's a stat sheet attached inside the box that says a lot of what I just said.
Right.
For 40 years, Congress hasn't been able to do immigration reform. 22%, we've got 22% more workers needed in order to harvest our crops. 1 in 10 Americans are not eating enough fruits and vegetables. We can't even, imports are exceeding exports, by the way. Mm-hmm. And that's going to continue unless we give the resources necessary in order to fill the box. So Congress, here's the decision that you're making. Our boxes are going to have 4 pieces of fruit when we can ultimately grow 16 or 18 pieces of fruit, but you're tying our hands in that regard. So we'll see what the feedback is.
TBD.
Yeah, exactly. But the visualization, as you mentioned, Ed, and the shock and awe and realization that something needs to be done. Something needs to be done.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, like I say, there's so much facing it, and just the country alone, we've got a 4% unemployment rate, across all industries. Well, I guess actually that's 4% non-farm, if I'm not mistaken, the way they report it. But even still, you've got not enough workers for the regular economy, and then this type of work, it's requires special skills as well as somebody it's seriously difficult work, and it's not a lot of people signing up for it. Certainly I know my kids aren't.
I know, that's the thing. I mean, like, who is going to do this work? I mean, again, your listeners know how hard it is to hire people regardless of where you sit on the supply chain, and especially in farming. I always say everyone should go out and kick dirt and see what it takes to put food on the table. It just doesn't come from a box in the back of a truck. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. My kids have no interest in going out and throwing artichokes into a bag or picking berries or cutting lettuce or celery. It is hard work. And we're blessed through the H-2A program that people are willing to come to this country to do it.
Which in the H-2A, it's not like it's a good program. Yep. But it's just like you've taken a good program and then you've gotten so many restrictions. Workers can't work for 12 months. They can only be 10, so they have to churn in and out. I mean, I know them all too, but it's like it's always frustrating to me. It's, again, going back to some of these things seem like, how can this be that hard to get that fixed?
Common sense, huh?
Yeah, I mean, why would you even consider, cutting the WIC program? Why is that even a thing?
It's funny that you say that, Craig, because at one point I'm like, I cannot even believe we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, 50% of the babies born in this country qualify for WIC.
Wow.
50%.
50.
Wow.
50%. And here we are saying, well, maybe we should cut giving them fruits and vegetables. And where habits get formed in those early years. We're a lost cause. But the next generations that are coming up, we've got to get fruits and vegetables in them. And oh, by the way, not only are they using the WIC benefit, but we obviously follow them afterwards, and they're actually eating more fruits and vegetables than those that don't take advantage of it. So those early habits, whether it's WIC or the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, school meals, all of that is absolutely critical in order for us to change the trajectory of human health.
Well, and then I'll use that as another nice little segue into our next deal.
Setting you up here,
yeah,
Craig,
you are. That's great. It's 8 out of 10 healthcare dollars were spent on preventable chronic disease. Mm-hmm. Preventable chronic disease. 8 out of $10 spent. 80%.
Correct.
Right? And we're having these conversations on these short-term issues, right? A short-term situation, short-term dollars that have multiple long-term dollar benefits if we just did a better job at education, providing the fresh fruits and vegetables, and putting on the table. And so maybe instead of 8 out of 10, even if you move to 7 out of 10, I mean, that would be a significant drop.
Yeah.
And these are things that are preventable. So
Yeah, I mean, $1.7 trillion being spent on healthcare related to diet-related diseases. This is just things that can be prevented based on your diet.
yeah.
So it's a crisis. It's a crisis of American health, and what's inspiring actually is that we have the solution. And even though we didn't get in this position overnight, right? Whether it's obesity, whether it's diet-related diseases, all the factors that are causing this health crisis, we didn't get there overnight. However, I will say that if people just ate more fruits and vegetables, we would go a long ways to cutting into those
for sure.
statistics that you just said.
Where do food prescriptions lie
Yeah.
as far as the cost, the burden? Where does that lie?
Yeah.
In what department? Is that that's not part of the Farm Bill.
No, so thank you for bringing up produce prescriptions, because I believe that's going to be a game changer for our industry and across the whole supply chain once again. So right now, produce prescriptions are being funded in a couple different ways. Some private insurance companies are funding them. At the White House Conference on Food, Hunger, and Nutrition, there was the freedom, I guess you would say, that the administration said that the 1115 Medicaid waivers, so those are basically coming from the Health and Human Services Department, you can use those Medicaid waivers on produce prescriptions now. So across the country, there's probably up to 150 pilots now related to produce prescriptions, and it's exactly as it sounds. You go to the doctor, and maybe you have diabetes, and maybe you have medication, but at the same time, they give you a prescription for $40 a week and for fresh fruits and vegetables. And what we have seen, because we've once again have data to support this, is that the indicators, the diabetic indicators, fall dramatically because they're eating fresh fruits and vegetables and pushing the bad stuff out. And over time, they're taking less and less medicine because they're eating more and more good foods. So it's really about pushing the bad food out and replacing it with good food. I think 100% this can be a game changer for the industry and for the world. Of course, it's going to come down to funding and who's going to fund it. Personally, I think HHS in the long run could fund it. The challenge is people might actually live longer, so they may be on Medicaid longer. Wouldn't that be such a horrific thing? And there are some very progressive health insurance companies that are funding it already on the prevention side. Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina is probably the gold standard for investing in this type of program. But think about it, you start at the early age, kinder to college as we like to say it, and have interventions there. You double down, triple down, 10x down on produce prescriptions to change our behaviors. And then I think the other opportunity we have is education. Education both in terms of consumers, how to, fruits are easier, vegetables are harder.
You're right. Oh, for sure.
And so making sure that we can teach people how to properly use vegetables, one, that they're convenient, and two, they know how to prep them and use them, cook them, and eat them. I think that can be a real game changer for us. And the other thing that we're really committed to is education across the medical field. Most physicians get less than an hour of nutrition training. That's college, post-college, residency.
So everything they learn, they want to know, they have to learn on their own, basically, on their.
Oh, they don't learn it at all.
Yeah.
And I remember we were working with a doctor, and he was I guess he was just a generalist. And I remember he would say patients would come in and they'd have to give them the diagnosis of stage 4 cancer and talking a little bit about things, and then all of a sudden the patient would leave the office and say, "Oh, doc, what should I eat?"
Yeah.
I'm healthy food. I mean, so.
Well,
I think we have a huge gap, education gap.
So that actually came up with we were talking with Lauren Walker.
Walker, yeah.
Earlier today,
Yeah.
and and kind of in the recap of it, there was, a couple of things on our side, right? So what we're here on the Hill. Here's our ask for these guys, and
That's right.
there's certainly plenty of things we need them to do, but a lot of making their job, I don't know what to say, easier, but more direct and getting the things done is number one, creating demand, right? And so how do we create demand? Really the key is the education piece, and we talked exactly about what you're talking about. When you get into vegetables, fruit's a little easier.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some, but there's education through not just preparation, but even some of the supply chains, right? And helping educate what goes on, and how the produce for our stuff and people that are on the buying end at some of the government levels and stuff. There's things that they don't know, right? And so education is huge, in helping us drive demand, but again, helping us accomplish a lot of these goals and getting folks to a place to where, we're lowering their healthcare costs and potentially adding some time to their days. If nothing else, even if it doesn't add time, I think it will definitely improve their quality.
Yeah, and make them feel better. I mean, everyone, at the end of the day, we're standing for, as an association, to bring the produce and floral community together to grow a vibrant future for all. Vibrancy is a key component of that. People want to live longer, but they want to live longer when they feel good.
Yeah.
And so that, you cannot live a healthy life without eating fruits and vegetables. It's not possible. So the opportunity that we have is to make sure that the narrative is there. We need to be in culture. We need to, continue to innovate as an industry. We need to make things simpler. You talk about convenience and I mean, whether it's grab and go or easy to cook, something along those lines or both need to be relevant to the work that we do. Education, you're right, is a big part of that. Access is another big part of that. People need to be able to access fruits and vegetables. We have a partnership with the Partnership for a Healthier America, and we had a Produce for All Leadership Summit all day yesterday, and it was phenomenal. And what we did was we brought leaders across all different types of sectors doing pilots and or that care deeply about driving consumption of fruits and vegetables. It was endearing, actually. I couldn't believe how many organizations are actually fighting to drive sales of our products. Because sales cures all. I mean, you guys know this.
Yeah.
Sales cures all, right? So we brought about 130 people together to talk about our White House commitment with PHA, which is to double consumption in 15 cities of fruits and vegetables by 2030. I would like to see it all cities, but let's start with 15. Indianapolis and Denver are our first two, and we have others on the docket, so we want to name all 15 cities by the end of the year. But what I have found is there are a lot of pilots out there. There's a lot of people trying to drive consumption of fruits and vegetables. The unlock is at the community level, to have these pilots and people talking to each other so we can look at the whole ecosystem, share ideas, best practices. I mean, I often say, no matter the city, there's a distributor, there's access to a grower, if not a grower, there's a buyer. I mean, we have the supply chain at our disposal. We can execute on anything, as long as we have the funding.
Yeah.
But I think the real unlock is for the community to work together to ultimately drive consumption. Now, 1 in 10 Americans are eating the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables every day, so if doubling means goes from 1 to 2, I mean, it's a start, but we have a long ways to go to get to 10.
So recommended, what is that?
Yeah, 5 a day.
So it's 5 a day is recommended, and that's...
It's not that much.
No, it's not, but I mean, that's fruits and vegetables, correct?
And the serving sizes, it's 200, so globally, it's 400 grams a day.
Okay.
And the global number is we sit around 240. So on average, people are getting about 240 grams a day. Globally, now think about that. China's in that number. If we went to 5 a day in China, we'd actually cut consumption because they are so vegetable heavy. They are way over index.
So now, is Europe still basically double what we do on a per pound basis, or kilograms?
I don't know the exact number on that, Craig. I wouldn't want to guess.
Yeah,
but
at one time
they're bigger. They're larger.
They consumed about twice what we do.
Yeah,
in terms
they
of
may still, although I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the statistic either. I thought maybe you knew that.
Sorry, no, I don't.
Well, you know, through this week we're here, certainly all these things very relevant, very important to the businesses we're in, but I think to the U.S. population as well. Something else that I sat in yesterday on the sustainability talk.
Okay.
That's obviously very important for a multitude of different reasons. I mentioned water being in short supply due to not raining.
Right. Yes. Mother
And
Nature.
So Mother Nature. But just talk a little bit about kind of the sustainability efforts and what's going on and what do you see happening out there in that world?
A black swan that I would make sure all your listeners are aware of relates to packaging and plastics.
Okay.
In the EU and in Canada, they have passed regulations that are incredibly egregious on our industry. What's disheartening is that we are about 3 to 4% of the plastic use in the whole store, yet we're the ones being targeted. So you may say, why? Part of it is we're a very fragmented industry, so they can kind of try to pick us off,
right,
as opposed to, if you look at soft drinks, for example, there's 3 players, so with pretty large capital investment behind them. The other part is that typically when you walk into a store, the first thing you see is the produce department, right? So if they want to make a real impact on the consumer image of plastics and packaging, why not hit the department that's usually at the center of every grocery store's go-to-market strategy? It's always produce. You got to be right on produce. You got to have quality, variety,
And
merchandising.
wholesome.
Exactly, right? So let's.
You want it to be the most wholesome thing you're going to buy there.
Exactly. So it's an image builder for any brand, and so I think that's another reason that we end up being the target for some of these efforts. But we are IFPA in particular is very involved in ensuring that some common sense is put against these, and that, think about the impact of food safety.
Oh, for sure.
Think about the impact to merchandising. Think about the impact of food waste.
So did they ban?
So by 2026, I think in Europe, it has to be home compostable. We don't even have the infrastructure to handle home compostable. Like, how many people home compost?
I still don't know. Well, actually, I had one years ago. I did have a compost bin, but no. Yeah, most people don't.
So you need and so what are you going to do if you're going to buy salad? Are you going to go in the back of your car and get a Tupperware container and go into the store and put salad mix into your Tupperware container and I got too much, so I'm going to take it out and put it back in the bin? It's there's no logic.
More work to be done.
Exactly. So
and that was across. The entire EU is part of it.
And it's going to actually get regulated down to the state level. So there's 26 or 27 states in the EU. So they're each now going to come up with their own guidelines. Nightmare. And then Canada. I had the opportunity to meet with Justin Trudeau and let him know that we're not against sustainability. I said that to him. I said, we're not against sustainability, but there is a pacing and an investment and an expectation of the industry to give us time to get sustainable packaging. IFPA invested in, we got a grant actually from the US government to come up with a home compostable PLU sticker, because that's the other thing that has been banned. And so we came up with the home compostable PLU sticker. We got $1 million grant from the USDA in order to do that. But now we need to solve for the glue. The glue is not home compostable. So now we're going back and trying to come up with a solution for the glue. So once again, we are very supportive of sustainability. We're the most sustainable product on the planet.
Yeah.
We're the most sustainable product on the planet.
Yeah.
And we're under indexing in terms of consumption. So we just need the time and the sequencing and again, the investment to get us there. But that's why I rewind to where I started. We need to be at every table where food is being discussed before the regulations are passed. And we missed the Europe one.
Yeah.
We got in too late. We're still fighting it, and we will fight it, especially on the food safety, food waste angle. And again, in due time, we will continue to be more sustainable in our packaging, but it's got to be at the right pacing. So that's, I would really encourage people, don't put your head in the sand on this
And
one.
you're talking mostly single-use packaging, right?
Right, it has to go to home compostable.
Correct.
It's a big deal.
Not boxes.
No.
Which you do know about that.
No, yeah, I was going to say, no.
I've talked to, but I know it sounds crazy, but, especially in a case like this, why don't we have reusable trays then, right?
So for like e-commerce, home delivery, etc.
Got it.
It might go there one day.
I
Yeah.
actually am talking.
You're talking about in-store
I'm
merchandising?
talking about in-store, and then the consumer, just like my Nespresso pods that I get, I mail those suckers back. I don't know why we couldn't do it. Yeah, they Nespresso, I mean, it's great coffee, but yeah, it's, they create it, you get a UPS bag, you put it in, fold it up, and send it back.
Wow,
So,
that's pretty cool.
So-
yeah.
Go ahead, no, go
ahead.
Well, I think technology plays a really big role in this as well. We have a technology accelerator where I think you and I were talking about this earlier, where we bring 12 companies, and these aren't garage band companies, these are technology companies that have used the technology in an industry other than produce. And we had over 60 applicants around the world apply. We picked 12. We put them through a full immersion program out in California so they get to understand, touch, feel our industry, to take their technology and apply it to our industry. That will be huge in terms of being able to get efficiencies out of the system, costs out of the system, address some of the labor challenges we just talked about. It's not a flip of the switch. It's not going to happen overnight, but every little bit helps, right? So we're excited about the potential of our tech accelerator. We're in the 3rd year now, and 3 of the organizations out of last year won Time's Best Green Technology Companies in the world. So all eyes are on us, which is good. We just need to whether it's health. Health is at the center of every conversation now. Unfortunately, some of that was due to COVID. But if we don't take advantage of this moment, shame on us. Technology and technology solutions to bring to the industry, we've got to be able to drive that in order to be sustainable, or we will continue to import more than we export. And American agriculture will die on the vine. So we are fighting very, very hard for that. Sustainable solutions is another key component of that. Making sure that we have the talent and labor to sustain us in the future. That's a big part of our portfolio as well, not only to make sure that people have the skills, but that we have a diverse portfolio of individuals that want to come into our industry, and making sure that leadership of these organizations see it as a real game changer and competitive advantage. It's interesting, and I'll close on this to shift it over to you, Ed, is that if you talk to millennials or Gen Z, especially Gen Z, what they care most about are the core values of our industry. I mean, it's
symbiotic.
it's symbiotic, exactly. I mean, they care about the environment, they care about healthy eating, they care about being an entrepreneur, they care about technology. Like, they want to change the world. And it drives me crazy when people say, oh, look at those Gen Zers, they don't care. They care a lot more than I cared when I was 16.
My generation versus this.
Yeah, I mean, it's
100% with
unbelievable.
you.
So we are in a great opportunity to unleash them and provide a growing opportunity for them to work in an industry that will change the trajectory of human health and create a vibrant future for all. That's worth getting up for and getting paid for, in their case.
So obviously, we're here at the Washington Conference, and we're encouraging folks to attend or come next year. I'm not sure exactly what the dates are, but we'll post them on the screen hopefully during for the YouTube and video component. What is the reaction from members and staffers after we leave here, right? Do they say anything to you in particular? I mean, I'm trying to gauge what's going on here versus other industries, and what the perception is, I guess, from leaders here in DC.
Yeah, so...
Do we get a reaction?
For sure. WIC is a perfect example. We had a $1.2 billion target on our backs, and we won. When I first got to DC, people would say, oh, you have the sexy products, you have the wind, beneath your wing, and, it must be easy for your industry. And then I was here a while, and they're saying, wow, you seem to be the target, what's going on? I thought you guys were the sexy products. And now I'm hearing, thanks to people coming to the Washington Conference and us being more aggressive in our tactics, you guys are everywhere. You guys are everywhere, fighting for everything for your industry.
That's the feedback?
Yeah, we can't turn a corner when everyone was talking about the WIC baskets. I promise you, everyone's going to be talking about those labor boxes. DC is a contact sport. You have to be here. And so as people think about where they want to spend their time next year, I would love to have your audience here. I want to demystify DC. All you have to do is come, tell your story, be yourself. That's what moves members of Congress. And when you have 400 people up there doing it for the next two days, we are everywhere advocating for the issues that our whole industry cares about.
Hey gang, I hope like hell you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Fresh CrEd special edition coming from Washington, D.C. Guys, none of this is possible without our partners, so I want to take a few minutes just to give each one of them a shout out. I'd like to say thanks to IFPA, Equifruit, Corn and Image Packaging, Cactus Packing Supplies, Sunfed, and IFPA. And also, please take a second, if you're not already following us, to go out to our webpage and click to follow so you can catch all the episode drops and all the shows that we're putting out. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys soon.